Welcome to the On the Air podcast, a companion to On the Air magazine, a bi-monthly magazine for beginner to intermediate ham radio licensees. I'm your host and the editor of On the Air, Becky Schoenfeld, W1BXY. Every month, the On the Air podcast extends material found in On the Air magazine to help you learn about the many things that the ham radio hobby and service has to offer. The On the Air podcast is sponsored by ICOM for the love of ham radio. Welcome to the April 2024 episode. The March-April 2024 issue featured a story on served agencies, who they are and what they need from us. With me today to talk more about these organizations is ARRL Director of Emergency Management, Josh Johnston, KE5MHV. Welcome, Josh.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. So as we know, ham radio is a service, the amateur radio service, and hams are charged by the FCC to be of service to the community. And if you're a ham who's particularly interested in public service, emergency communications, maybe you're a traffic handler, you're part of an ARRL group, you hear this term served agency a lot. So for somebody who is maybe new to this world, what's a broad definition of a served agency?
Whatever organization you are working with, it could even be for a particular event, but it also, in many cases, is going to be the agency or the organization that you're working with and have a long-standing relationship with to provide assistance either during disasters or during public service type events.
Okay. So what might be some examples of this from maybe at a federal level right down to a more local level?
Yeah, and glad you mentioned that, because depending on where you're talking about, it could be a vast group of different agencies or different organizations. For instance, we here at ARRL headquarters have a relationship with FEMA at the national level, with the Federal Emergency Management Agency. We have a relationship with CISA, which is the Cybersecurity Infrastructure Agency. And CISA also is the federal lead for Emergency Support Function 2, which is the communications function within the federal government. So we have a relationship with them. We have a relationship with the National Weather Service. So we have relationships on the national level with national organizations that we provide, service and cooperation with. At the national level, it's more of a cooperation, information sharing type of discussion. As you get to the state and local level, it's more boots on the ground. So your local organizations may be your local emergency management, your local police, your local fire. It may be a local Red Cross chapter. It may be, for public service events, it may be a race organization that provides a foot race. For instance, in Boston, we have a number of hams that assist every year with the Boston Marathon, and I know that goes on with race events, public service type events, all over the country. So, whichever organization for each event, it could vary. Okay. So, as you go through and as things change, those organizations may change periodically year to year. You may have long-standing relationships that last constantly, but then you provide other assistance as needed with other situations.
So you used the word relationship, and when I read about served agencies and read some of the materials we put out to talk about how best to be of service, this relationship comes up a lot. The need to build a relationship ahead of time, the need to maintain the relationship so that it's a good one.
Right.
Can you talk a little bit about that? Where does that start?
Having spent time in emergency management myself, I can tell you right now, the last time and place you want to meet someone is during the event. So if you have a disaster going on, that's not the time to walk into someone's emergency operations center or organization and say, hey, I'm a ham and I'm here to help. Where do you need me? You should work with your local coordinators. In many cases, someone within your organization very well may already have that relationship built for your organization. That's the best place to foster and grow that relationship, and to know what your role is ahead of time. You know, if you're walking into a disaster, especially at the local level, we'll concentrate at the local level. If you're walking into a relationship, a situation at the local level, and trying to learn what you need to be doing, they don't, at that point in time, the local coordinators, the local served agency doesn't have the time or the latitude to be showing you what they need. They need that done ahead of time. And that should be done through training and exercising and preparations before something happens.
Yeah. So in terms of On the Air's audience, which tends to be
Right.
Folks who are more recently licensed, or maybe folks who have been licensed but haven't found their way into some of these activities. What are ways that somebody who's new to this can begin to be the type of ham that can be
in most
most
areas? I'll say this up front: ask questions. Don't go into it with I know this. I'm going to tell you what I can do. Go into it more with an inquiring minds want to know type situation. But in many cases, your local club, a local MCOM group, most counties around the country have a local emergency coordinator through the ARRL program, and seek out who that EC is, who that emergency coordinator is. Talk to them. If they've got that relationship with the served agencies, then express your interest to them with wanting to be involved and wanting to help out, and then be available for that. And your first events are probably not going to be a major event. They're probably going to be a test bait. It's your opportunity to show that you're willing to do what they ask you to do, for your opportunity to help as needed. And it may vary in roles. It may not necessarily be talking on the radio the whole time. In some cases that I know of, they actually would plug you in as a different role. But if something happens, then you have the ability to provide communications back to them on that. So be willing to accept some roles based on what's needed for that particular event, and take that as an opportunity to demonstrate that you're capable of doing what they ask you to do. In many cases, they're looking for, is this someone I can depend on? And so as you demonstrate that, it's just like a new firefighter coming into a role as a firefighter, or a new police officer. Their first role is not going to be, a major, high-scale technical deployment. They're going to work into that situation. They're not going to just immediately be thrown into it. So think of it as an opportunity to get involved, ask the questions, and then show more of a servant's heart, or show the ability to learn, to listen and learn, and the ability and the willingness to do whatever's asked of you for a particular event.
What might some of those other tasks and positions be?
It could vary depending on whether it's an exercise or a drill. You could be asked to be a simulation person the first time. You may be asked to provide a communications relay. You may be asked to. There could be it could be almost unlimited as to what you might be asked to do. The key I would tell everyone is whatever you're asked to do it well. I think sometimes we as humans have the nature that we're like, well, I'm above that. I can do better than that. Yeah, but that's what they needed from you that time. That may not be what they need from you every time, but that's what they needed this time. And as long as we do what we are asked to do well, a lot of times you're going to, hey, they did a really good job at that. I need them to do this time. So demonstrating, especially early on, that you're willing to do what's asked it'll, in more cases than not, it's going to bolster the opportunity to do more of the things you enjoy or prefer to do.
Mm-hmm. And I would imagine it's going to show the rest of the people on your team and the folks at the served agency that you're somebody that we can depend on, you're
Right.
somebody who's valuable and
Right.
that we want to have around. And in terms of the served agency, another thing that I hear a lot about is being a good guest.
Mm-hmm.
As volunteers, we are also sort of guests
Right.
of the served agency. And
Be professional.
yeah,
Professional doesn't necessarily mean paid. Professional means carrying yourself in a professional manner, working with the organization and whatever they need. In my organization, when I was a county emergency manager, I needed people to answer my telephones. And I had people within our communications, within our areas group, that were willing to do that. We wound up, that was just they were the ones that owned that. And they stepped up and they took it and they said, hey, we'll handle this. If we need the phone bank set up, just tell us, we'll set it up. They took care of everything. And from then on, they were just the ones, they owned it, and they were great at doing it. The key was they were good communicators. And they were willing to serve in whatever role they needed. And they knew in that particular case, the best way to help us was to do that. So, you know, they helped us with all kinds of things around our emergency operations center, and it was a great relationship.
great. So it sounds like what served agencies look for from us is willingness,
Right.
flexibility, professionalism. So where do hams fit into a response?
It's another really good question, and there again, it's going to be a really varied situation. It could depend on incident to incident or event to event. We have hams in the country that are providing mesh networks, deployable mesh networks. We have hams around the country that have pre-deployed large area mesh networks that they're doing mesh networking on ham frequencies. It may be as simple as needing HF voice communications. It could be handling traffic via WinLink or however. It could be providing assistance even back to a system that's been around for years. It could be even using the national traffic system to do health and welfare or other type of traffic. It's just like the amateur radio hobby, and the reason I tell people one of the things I love about being a ham and about the hobby is there's something for anyone. You may not be interested in digital communications, but you may be great at sideband voice HF communications. That's great. It works for everybody. There's something for everyone. And the same thing with this. You may be a internet guru that does all the mesh network and all that stuff through Arden or different means. Or you may just be someone that's a really good radio voice that handles radio communications. There again, going back to my experiences as a county emergency manager, I used our hams not just on ham frequencies. They were our communications team for our emergency operations center. They weren't afraid of a radio. If it was a public safety radio, if it was talking to our road department on their radios, whoever, we had all of those radios in our emergency operations center, and they were my communications team. They happened to be hams, and then we had hams running amateur stations as well. So we had HF and all that, but I used them for those purposes because they were good with the radio. They were comfortable with the radio. So it could vary. There again, at the discretion of the served agency, you might be asked to run a public safety radio rather than a ham radio. And so there again, that's a situation where they demonstrated to me they were good communicators. So that's where I asked them to be. So there are many roles to be served and to be filled once we build that relationship and develop those open communication lines between the served agency and the ham radio operators.
All right, very good. So varied opportunities when those opportunities
Absolutely.
come up, and a chance to serve in a lot of ways.
Absolutely.
Great.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks again, Josh
Thank
Johnston.
you for having me.
KE5 MHV for being here today. And the On the Air podcast will be back in May 73.
73.